What is the link? What do cars have to do with books, you might ask? The Trilateral Commission with the Council on Foreign Relations. You ever hear of them? Well, neither did I, until I noticed the chain of coincidence.
Hello and welcome to Popcorn News, something to watch while you eat popcorn. Do not try to comprehend it all. Nay, just eat the popcorn. We are waiting for Infamy. Tomorrow is December 7th, the 75th anniversary of the Pearl Harbor attack. Waiting for Infamy, waiting for the shoe to drop. Oliver Stone has made a series called The Untold History of the United States. And I watched it, the first episode dealing with World War II last night. And of course I've got quibbles. There's always going to be quibbles. Overall it's fine. But what about Mr. Stone? What about Freedom Betrayed? Herbert Hoover's secret history of World War II and its aftermath. We do not see that in your otherwise fine presentation, and it's okay. It's a good, from what I can tell just from watching the first episode, it's good, but everybody's going to have a bias, and he's got a bias too. And there's this hooray for FDR bias, but you can bring in something called binocular vision, where you find a book by Herbert Hoover giving the dark side of FDR. And so instead of looking with just one eye, you're looking with two eyes, and you begin to see an extra dimension. But one thing Oliver Stone talks about in the opening of the series is what he calls the tyranny of now.
We live much of our lives in a fog, all of us. But I would like my children to have access to something that looks beyond what I would call the tyranny of now. You watch the media, everyone talks about that thing, the news of the day, and all the subconscious, really important stuff that's going on is being neglected.
The tyranny of now. This is the same thing that is veiled within my constant reference of do not try to comprehend it all, nay, just eat the popcorn. The news erupts like popcorn in a tyranny of now. That yesterday it was the Oakland warehouse fire. Today, who knows? And everyone will be rushing off to whatever the latest popcorn popping is part of the tyranny of now. There were, as delved into extensively by Herbert Hoover, something called the Four Freedoms, which came out of the Atlantic Charter of, I think it was 1941, where the ideal of the Allies, why we fight, well, we fight for the four freedoms: freedom of speech, freedom of religion, freedom from fear, and freedom from want. But then, as Hoover details, they began to tiptoe away from the ideals of the four freedoms because one of the allies was the Soviet Union. And to bring freedom of speech and religion to the communist Soviet Union it began to be a little bit of a problem. So they tiptoed away from the original ideals of the four freedoms: freedom of speech, freedom of religion, freedom from fear, freedom from want, as inaugurated in the Atlantic Charter. And so, as they tiptoed away, they began more and more to lose sight of those four freedoms, and they embraced this idea of identity politics, also called political correctness. And this is covered in a syndicated column by Gene Lyon. Finally, a debate about identity politics. And Gene Lyons is a syndicated columnist of a liberal persuasion, but he bemoans the recent loss of the election, unless they do something tricky, and don't be surprised if they do. December 19th, the Electoral College votes. But Gene Lyons complains about the identity politics, the political correctness, and he calls it a kind of race and gender-based moral bullying. And he mentions an essay in the New York Times by Columbia University historian Mark Lila called "The End of Identity Liberalism." In recent years, Lila writes, American liberalism has slipped away from the Atlantic Charter and into a kind of moral panic about racial, gender, and sexual identity that has distorted liberalism's message and prevented it from becoming a unifying force. So I say this not to be pro-Democrat, but we want a two-party system. If we have just a one-party system, that by definition is a dictatorship. So the Democrat Party and the liberals are currently in the wilderness contemplating, and they can take two courses. They can go the Pelosi route of, no, let's stick with the political correctness, part of the Frankfurt School of Socialism, a fake left, or they can return to the Atlantic Charter and focus on the four freedoms: freedom of speech, freedom of religion, freedom from fear, freedom from want.